Hello there, and welcome to the weekly Outside Views magazine on British politics. The UK government's plan to deport migrants to Rwanda is lawful. That's at least what a court ruled on Monday. The decision is likely to result in further legal disputes. The court ruled that the rule does not violate the UN Refugee Convention or human rights law, although civil society groups argue that it denies the human right to seek asylum. The scheme, under which the UK will pay President Paul Kagame's government £120 million to process asylum claims, was due to start in May, but a series of legal battles have meant that no UK refugees have yet entered the East African country and were not brought there. However, the court ruling is unlikely to spell the end of the litigation, and the appeal process is expected to last many months, during which the migrants will not be able to be transported or deported to Rwanda. Human rights activists and opposition politicians have condemned the deal with Rwanda as immoral, expensive, and inhumane. The Kagame government is a one-party state and has a reputation for cracking down on political opponents and freedom of expression. As part of the United Nations Universal Periodic Review of Human Rights in January, Britain called on Rwanda to carry out transparent, credible, and independent investigations into allegations of extrajudicial killings, deaths in custody, enforced disappearances, and torture, and bring perpetrators to justice. So that's the country they're making deals with. This is a positive step in our quest to find innovative long-term solutions to the global migration crisis, said Rwanda government spokeswoman Yolande Makolo. The UK, indeed, is not the only country with a policy of exchanging money for welcoming migrants. Denmark set the trend when it struck down its outsourcing deal with Rwanda in 2021, for which it changed national laws to relocate asylum seekers to countries outside the EU. The European Commission has publicly criticized these regulations, and they are still not legal from my point of view. The Millfield School in Somerset in the southwest of Great Britain is actually one of the most respected schools in the country. And if you want to be included, you have to pay more than €50,000 in fees per year. The school's graduates include stars such as singer Lily Allen, Formula One driver Lando Norris, British Defence Secretary Ben Wallace, and Romeo Beckham, son of David and Victoria. But now the school was making headlines even here in Germany, but for completely different reasons. Disturbing scenes occurred during a play. A picture published by the Jewish Chronicle shows several students laughing and giving the Nazi salute. "It makes me sick. What the hell were the teachers thinking?" asks a furious father. "Showing this play would never be appropriate, but certainly not on the eve before Yom Kippur." That's the Feast of Atonement, and that's the highest Jewish holiday. It always takes place on the 10th day of the month of Tishri in the Jewish calendar system. This year, Yom Kippur fell on September 24th and 25th. The scandalous play at the school was played by one actor alone. He appeared disguised as Adolf Hitler in front of a huge swastika flag and with a swastika bandage on his arm. The Hitler doppelganger also quoted racist and homophobic original passages from Hitler's book Mein Kampf. Hitler actor Pip Utten says the play was intended to show how easily people could be manipulated by the Nazis, and that this is still possible today. That's how the Hitler salute picture came about, he says. "I told them to thank the technicians with a special greeting. When they raised their arm, I said, that's how it worked in Berlin." That's what Utten told the Jewish Chronicle. "I was not trying in any way to glorify that awful salute," he says. But one thing is clear. The scandalous piece at the Millfield School will not be shown again in the near future. "We shouldn't have put on this play," said headmaster Gavin Horgan. "We've overhauled our performance review and we'll make it ensure this will never happen again." Happened in September, but was in some news here in Germany now. That's why I included it. At security checks at airports, they always cause trouble and long queues. After leaving the EU, Great Britain is now planning to relax the regulations for liquids in hand luggage for 2024. The Ministry of Transport announced on Thursday in London that the upper limit for liquids in cabin luggage should be raised to 2 litres. In addition, electronic devices such as laptops should no longer have to be unpacked during the inspection. According to the government, the new rules are to apply at British airports from June 2024. A corresponding draft law is to be brought before Parliament on that Thursday. Since the end of 2006, there has been an EU-wide regulation that passengers are only allowed to carry a maximum of 1,000 milliliters of liquid in their hand luggage. They must also be placed in their own clear bag for inspection. This is to prevent liquid explosives from getting on board aircraft. According to the British government, this can now be prevented by new security technology. The Ministry of Transport announced that the corresponding control devices should be installed at all major airports in the country within 2 years. The new devices X-ray the hand luggage using computer tomography and their technology, so CT, which is well known in medicine. Instead of just a few overhead images, they deliver hundreds of images of the piece of luggage without any loss of speed, which enables three-dimensional views on the control screens and the layer-by-layer X-raying of the bag's contents. The devices can also detect solid and liquid explosives. Strikes in Britain's NHS health service have sparked concerns about huge shortages in emergency rooms and about emergency doctors. NHS leaders are deeply concerned at the level of suffering and risk that patients may face tomorrow and beyond, is what Matthew Taylor, the chief of the NHS Confederation, which brings together health service organizations, wrote in a letter to the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. The safety of the patients cannot be guaranteed if the ambulance drivers want to go on strike, which happened on Wednesday. Already on Tuesday, tens of thousands of nurses and employees of the NHS in clinics stopped working to emphasize their demand for significantly higher wages and, of course, better working conditions. It's the first time the Royal College of Nursing industry body has called on its members to strike in its more than 100-year history. Taylor urged Sunak to end the argument quickly. The Conservative head of government rejected current improvements in wages. There would be no leeway for this in the financial year running until the beginning of April. Sunak told the Daily Mail newspaper, but however he indicated more accommodation in the next year. Yeah, my ass. 3 emergency services in different parts of England declared a state of emergency on Tuesday. There are significant delays, said the North East Ambulance Service. NHS workers are also protesting their working conditions. Critics speak of a vicious circle. Emergency doctors need many times longer than prescribed to get to emergency patients. Ambulances, in turn, queue for hours in front of emergency rooms to hand over patients. In addition, more than 7 million people are waiting for routine interventions. And one reason for this is that the corona pandemic has caused a huge backlog of treatments. Great Britain supports the Ukrainian army in the defensive war against Russia with winter equipment. We expect to have 10,000 more cold weather kits delivered by Christmas, is what Defense Secretary Ben Wallace told Parliament in London on Tuesday. This included extremely warm clothing, durable sleeping bags and insulated tents. So far, London has delivered 15,000 such pieces of equipment as well as 900 generators to generate electricity, Wallace said. In total, the international community sent around 1.23 million items of winter gear to Ukraine. After leaving the European Union, the British side had to regulate the subsidy control nationally. They could not act completely freely, though. On January 4th, the Subsidy Control Act 2022 will come into effect. It regulates how and under what conditions the British public sector may intervene financially in the economy. In particular, distortions of competition and inefficient spending of public funds are to be prevented. On the other hand, the public interest should be supported, especially the achievement of net zero. European state aid law still applied in the United Kingdom until it left the EU. The issue of level playing field played an important role in the negotiations on a free trade agreement then. This concerned the fear that one party to the agreement could gain competitive advantages over the other party through state aid. The Trade and Cooperations Agreement therefore contains Title 10, that's the level playing field, of which is expressively devoted to subsidy control. Also worth mentioning is the WTO set of rules, the Agreement on Subsidies and Countervailing Measures. Because acceptance into the European research framework continues to falter, the United Kingdom is now launching its own multi-million-dollar research program. In the EU, it's billions. The UK government has announced a massive £484 million stimulus package. This is intended to invest in the development of universities and other research institutions to support the growth and innovation of British science. Above all, research in the field of nuclear fusion will benefit, they say. Specifically, the package is divided as follows: £200 million for UK research and development infrastructure, £100 million in quality funding for UK universities, £84 million in JAET, that's Joint European Torus, a nuclear fusion experiment, and related activities, £45.1 million into the Industrial Nuclear Fusion Programme, £30 million to a Talent and Science Fund. And UK Business Secretary Grant Shapps said, "The immediate investment will help our excellent research sector strengthen its talent pool, invest confidently in infrastructure, and protect the UK's reputation as a scientific superpower." Pending acceptance into the research framework program Horizon Europe of the European Union, they have to do this, and the Union links the admission of the British to a dispute settlement in the conflict over the Northern Ireland Protocol, and that will not change, and so it will take a while, and they will need these subsidies. Following allegations of nepotism and corruption, the British government is now taking legal action against a company that commissioned it to supply protective clothing at the beginning of the corona pandemic. The Ministry of Health in London announced on Monday that PPE MedPro had been accused of breach of contract. The company, of course, rejected this. But the case has recently caused a stir. Several media reported that the Conservative House of Representatives member, the House of Commons member, Michelle Mone, had advertised the company in emails to private addresses of members of the government. The company was subsequently awarded a contract worth more than £200 million, despite having no manufacturing experience. More than £100 million worth of protective clothing turned out to be unusable. Mone denies allegations that she benefited financially from the contract. However, she has temporarily resigned from the House of Lords. At the beginning of the pandemic, the Conservative government had awarded numerous lucrative contracts for masks and protective equipment without a tender. Critics accused them of favoring friends, relatives, and generous donors of the Conservative Party. In January 2022, a court found that companies had been wrongly favored. The ministry had defended its approach at the time. At the time, every second counted. Meanwhile, the agency is trying to reclaim billions of pounds from companies for over-ordered goods. And this concludes this week's magazine on British politics. I'll see you in the next one, of course. I hope that you will watch my next video. I'll be back.